Did you know that Charles Schwab, the famous financial advisor, was dyslexic? Did you know that Ted Turner, the guy who started CNN and TBS and TNT, he too was dyslexic? Did you know that Tommy Hilfiger, Bill Hewitt, John Chambers, Ingvar Kamprad, who is the founder of IKEA, and Henry Ford were all dyslexic? But they did not let the dyslexia define them or to stop them. They just found a way to work around it. And on today's show, we are joined with a thriver who's not letting dyslexia stop him either. All this and more on today's edition of the Thrive Time Show.
Get ready to enter the Thrive Time Show.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
We started from the bottom, now we're on the top, teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colton Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of five, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the C&Z up on your radio, and now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom.
Yes, and yes. Thrive Nation, you are in for a laser show today. Jason, on today's show, we have an incredible guest.
Yeah.
A guy that I met at the conference.
True.
A man by the name of Jeremi, and I believe, Jeremi, you spell it Jeremie. Am I getting that correct?
Actually, it's Jeremi. No extra E.
No extra E.
No,
So
but there's a silent Q at the end, right?
Oh, nice. So Jeremi, it's Jeremi. And where's home for you? Can you tell the listeners where are you at? Where are you located right now?
Yeah. I live in Hot Springs, Arkansas.
And how did you first hear about the Thrive Time Show?
I heard it on Spotify. I'm looking up a business podcast so I can learn more about business, you know?
And what did you look? How did you search? I think this is where the story starts in my mind, because you did not type into Google what you were looking for. You did not type into Spotify what you were looking for. How did you search for us?
So I grabbed my phone and I spoke into my phone. Looking up a leadership podcast by Craig Rochelle, and your podcast popped up as well.
And why did you speak it into your phone?
Well, because I cannot read. I can't read.
Why can't you read?
It was a birth defect. I was born a blue baby. I was deprived of oxygen as a child. They had to resuscitate me, and they believe that because of that time that I was deprived of oxygen so long, it damaged a part of my brain, and I just can't grasp reading.
But you went to school, and I understand you actually did well in school. You actually got straight A's on some on papers. How could you possibly ace your papers without the ability to read?
Well, it's honestly it's quite easy. You just do it. But you know, I would get my phone and I would walk around the room, pace back and forth, talking to my phone, writing essays through speech to text, and I would do that for hours, trying to make good grades. You know.
So you would speak. Did you use do you have a certain program you used or a certain headset? Was it your phone? How did you do that?
Yeah. So I would use my phone. So I'd use Google. I would use the Google keyboard, and I would go onto a note-taking app, and I would just press the button and then just start talking. And then I would take that, I would copy and paste it, and then I'd go put it in Google Translate, and it would read it back to me, and I would do it until it sounded perfect. Just repetitive over and over and over again.
And how far through school did you get?
I got through 3 semesters, and I got a full ride because I went and got my GED. And the 3rd semester, I was like, this is kind of pointless. You know, I haven't really learned anything, and I'm wasting my time.
What kind of stuff did you learn during your first 3 semesters? What kind of classes did you have?
So, I mean, I took reading. I took a lot of literacy, history, math. I took 2 business classes, a computer science class, and that's about it.
And then at a certain point, you realized this was not a good use of your time.
No, just I wasn't getting anywhere, and the goal wasn't clear on where I was going to go once I graduated, and it just I saw a better future just striking out on my own.
And so you were on your phone, and you said to your phone, do you remember what you said to your phone to find our show?
Yeah, I think I put in business podcasts, and on Spotify. Yeah.
It's craziness. So I just want to make sure the listeners get this idea, because somebody out there, when I talked to you yesterday, I said somebody needs to hear this story. I don't know who needs to hear the story. And to me, you might not think that it's a great story, but to me, it's an awesome story because now you have your own business. And explain what your business is and how you got your first customer.
So I do property management in the vacation rental industry. So Airbnb, VRBO, booking. We get customers through online, and I have customers who have housing that they don't use, and so I make money for them using their housing. But I got my first customer talking about business. I was at church. I used to work at New Life Church, and I was walking through, and a whole bunch of guys were standing around in a circle, and they said, "Hey, come here." And I went over, and they said, "You need to talk to this guy. He's struggling in his business." And so I started talking to him, and he's like, "I have a whole bunch of tree houses, and I need some help." And so I said, "Yeah, let me help you. Let me see what I can do." And I just started with that.
So
I got my first one.
What would you say to somebody out there who's struggling because of some type of disability?
I would say, the biggest limiting factor is yourself. No one else cares about what is holding you back. Only you do. And if you let yourself hold yourself back, you won't get anywhere. As I was growing up, I'm number 6 of 9 kids. All my siblings did very well in school. They all have great jobs and things like that, and I just didn't do very well. I didn't realize how much I held myself back until I moved out and I started having to fend for myself. And then I was like, man, I get to this point where I can't function unless I have someone else. And so I was like, I'm not going to do that. I need to be able to be self-dependent. And I went to a school in Hot Springs called ACTI, and they said they gave me a test, the first test I'd ever taken without someone there with me. And they said, do this test. It took me 2 weeks to do a test that was 10 pages long, and most people could do it within a day. And I was like, this is crazy. I can't continue to do this. So I found a way that I could function. I said, I'm not going to continue to live a life of dependency on other people. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to prove that I can do everything myself. And that's what I've been doing.
Have you ever looked up a list of people who are dyslexic that have had success?
I have a while back. One of the ones was Tom Cruise. I was like, Mission Impossible. That guy needs people to read to him. I was like, I would never guess that.
Yeah, there are so many super successful people that do not do well in formal education. And what I want somebody to get out of the show is, one, Jeremi, Jeremi. You are speaking your success into existence, and there's somebody out there that needs to get this idea that success is totally possible, although we have, quote unquote, certain struggles in the way. You told me yesterday, you said you were actually thankful for being dyslexic in some way, and then it developed certain compensatory skills for you, or it changed your mindset. Could you explain how being dyslexic has made you a more resourceful person?
Oh yeah. So when you have a disability, like not being able to read or dyslexia, it changes your perspective on things because you have to figure out a new way to go about things. So you look at things different. You look at challenges different. Everybody sees a page and you're like, well, how am I going to read that? Everybody else is reading it. How am I going to read that? So you start figuring out a way around it so you can get the same outcome but a different way to go about it. It's like there's so many different ways to do so many different things. Like the driving test, trying to learn how to take the driving test, not knowing how to read was pretty difficult. But I went in there and I told the lady, I said, hey, here's what's going on, and I went in there at the age of 18 because I was so scared that I would never be able to drive because I couldn't read. And I just held it off until I was 18, and I just had to get my driver's license. And I said, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I went in there and I took the test 3 times, and it the first time I failed, the second time I was 3 questions off, and the third time I passed. And what I did was I sat there and I just sat there and I memorized all the questions, and I went over it over and over and over again. It was really intense, but I found a different way to pass the test that no one else had done before. Yeah.
I think that somebody might need to hear some of these people's names just to kind of. I think somebody out there. There's got to be somebody out there who is searching for our podcast via their voice because they can't type. And I have done a poor job speaking to this audience, Jeremy. So I just wanted to list off a few names of people who've had super success who are dyslexics. I think if you're not careful, you might think that if you don't do well in a traditional education that you can't do well. We have Henry Ford, the founder of Ford Motor Company, did very, very well. This just in, Ford has done well, and he can't read. Could not read. Ingvar Kamprad, the guy started IKEA. Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin. We know Virgin Mobile. We know Virgin Airlines. Charles Schwab, the financial advisor, could not read. William Hewitt, the guy who started Hewlett-Packard, William Hewlett. Steve Jobs, William Wrigley, Steven Spielberg. We could go on and on and on and on. But what would you say to somebody out there that has put a limiting factor on their life and career because they cannot read and do well in school in the traditional sense?
Well, I believe that if you're doing that, if you're putting a limiting factor on yourself, it's holding yourself back. God did that for a reason. The reason that you have a limiting factor is unknown, but he did that. All these people that Clay just mentioned, he put those limiting factors on there so they could become the people that God needed them to be. So Ford, he couldn't read, and if he knew how to read, he probably wouldn't have been able to create Ford. I mean, it's amazing how your mindset changes when you have something that's just a little different from everybody else. And without that, I mean, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't know how to read. I mean, if I knew how to read, I would probably be a totally different person with a totally different perspective on life. And because of this disability, it has pushed me into where I needed to be. And if you're being held back by something that is so minor like this, just a disability, then I mean you're losing so much potential in life. There's so much potential in life just because you have something that other people don't have. You have a blessing that is going to push you and create a wonderful life for you and the people around you if you would embrace it and just accept it and go, okay, this is who I am. This is how God created me. Show me what to do with it. Show me how I can further the kingdom. Show me how I can create a business. Show me how I can become the person that I need to be to get where I need to go.
You're such an encouragement for the people out there. And yesterday, you and I, we talked. We did a 13-point assessment yesterday, and because you're in that startup phase, it's probably not the right time for you financially to work with our coaching program, but it is absolutely the right time financially for you to come to a conference and to listen to our show. Can you share with the listeners about the conference and what your experience was like attending the in-person Thrive Time Show workshop?
Yes, I mean, I've heard the podcast a lot, but going there in person brought a whole new perspective to it. Because you see other people that are implementing the systems. There are people that I met there that had implemented the systems and was getting success from them. It wasn't just a story. It wasn't just a voice. It was actually meeting them in person, and that was a big deal. But it's also when you're there in person, your perspective changes also because you're able to see and visualize everything. I'm a very visual person.
Yep.
I can hear audibly, but I like to see things, and that's amazing. I mean, the tools and the speeches, the things that you give us, and when we walk out the door, we're empowered to grow our business. And I feel like I'm actually going somewhere. Like I said yesterday, I feel like you put wheels on my car. You know, I mean, that's the way it feels when you walk out of there. I have wheels and I got a GPS, and now I know where I'm going.
Now I appreciate you saying that. You attended the workshop, and again, I was very curious because we try to keep the conference kind of small, so that way there's 100 people in the room, and you can actually ask questions and interact with the attendees and that kind of thing. What was your favorite part of the workshop?
My favorite part was honestly when you're a financial guy, when Paul Hood got up there and started talking about how to do taxes and payroll, and I mean he's a great and knowledgeable guy, and he just speaks truth. You know, he's and that helped me out, knowing some of the things that he said about payroll, because I'm looking to hire employees so I can have some more time freedom, so I can grow my business even more. And then also hearing, I mean, you had so many resources right there at our fingertips. My girlfriend came with me and was taking notes, and she couldn't take notes fast enough because there was so many knowledge bombs in there. It was ridiculous.
Have you been to other business conferences in the past?
What's that?
Have you been to other business conferences in the past?
No.
Okay,
No,
so
I
this is
have
your
not.
first one. And you drove in from Arkansas?
I did. 5 hours. Yes, sir.
What would you say to somebody out there who is on the verge of the precipice? They're saying, I might attend. I'm thinking about it. What would you say to somebody who was thinking about attending?
Man, it's like going to Popeyes on Sunday. You know, it's like you're looking for Chick-fil-A, but you're only getting Popeyes. But if you go ahead and go to this, you're gonna get a whole platter of Chick-fil-A. I mean, it's like so much you can't even handle. It's ridiculous. So don't settle for Popeyes when you can have Chick-fil-A. In the business world.
Oh, wow! This guy is not a Popeyes fan. I tell you what, I appreciate you for that's good. If you're out there and you're listening and you work at Popeyes, I am sorry that you work at Popeyes. So, okay, now I had two notable quotables I want to give the listeners there. Two notable quotables. Albert Einstein once wrote, "Everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." Again, Albert Einstein once wrote, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." Napoleon Hill once wrote, "Strength and growth come only through continuous effort and struggle." I'll give you the mic here, Jeremy, to wrap up today's show. You are a dyslexic guy. You found our freaking show by talking into your phone and searching for something with your voice. For somebody out there that does not believe, or maybe previous to this conversation, does not believe that success is a choice because they are dyslexic or because they struggle to learn in the traditional sense, what advice would you have for them?
Man, if you focus on the thing that you're not good at, you're not going to be good at anything else. It's like that fish focusing on how to climb the tree when it needs to focus on swimming. When growing up, everybody would focus on how I couldn't read and how I wouldn't make it. And so I said, no, I'm not going to focus on what I can't do. I'm going to focus on what I can do. And you can do something about what's going on in your life. You can choose to focus on the right things. Don't focus on things you can't do. Focus on things you can do.
Thrive Nation, think about this for a second. Richard Branson, he's doing well. Jason, if somebody has $1 billion, do you think they're doing well?
I mean, if it's $1 billion, maybe.
That's a controversial take. All right, so Richard Branson did well. He's dyslexic. He doesn't do well in school. Charles Schwab, the financial advisor, did well. Dyslexic. Ted Turner, have you ever watched CNN before, Jason?
He saved the Buffaloes.
There it is. CNN. Jason, you're really dropping some knowledge bombs this morning. So you got Ted Turner. He's a billionaire. Did well. Tommy Hilfiger. Jason, in your mind, is he successful?
Oh, yeah, he's a name brand.
And he's dyslexic. We say, well, I don't know. Bill Hewlett-Packard. Would you say that Bill did okay without a degree?
Yeah, I see his printers everywhere.
The fact that he's dyslexic, did you think that, if you're worth $1 billion, does that make you successful in your mind? Or should he have to also do well in formal education in your mind to become successful?
I don't think anybody has to do well in formal education.
I tell you what, this guy hates Popeyes and you hate formal education.
True.
We're continuing. There's so many. John Chambers, the CEO of Cisco. Again, Jason, if somebody's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, are they successful, or do you think they have to have the ability to memorize and take tests and do well in formal education?
I would say they are far more successful than the people who are focusing on just doing well in formal education.
The founder of IKEA can't read, is dyslexic. Do you think IKEA is doing well in your opinion? Would you give them a mega point?
I give him a mega point.
You would?
Oh, yeah. I'd give him a couple.
Henry Ford, in your mind, was Henry Ford successful despite being dyslexic?
I would say yeah.
Are you sure?
I mean,
by what standard?
By what standard? I used to drive one of his vehicles. He's so successful, I drove a 2003 model of his vehicle decades after he's been dead.
But what's he going to fall back on without a formal education degree? What's he going to do? What's his backup plan? What was his plan?
Reinventing the frickin' auto industry.
Okay, well, now that Henry Ford's dead, he doesn't have the ability to but I bet you he lived a life of regret knowing that he did not do well on formal tests.
Oh, I bet he never slept.
That's what it was. Hey, Jeremy, I appreciate you so much for joining us this morning, my friend. You are a great American, and I cannot wait to put out this show.
Thank you so much, Clay.
Hey, you take care, dude. And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!